request Dr. Hariharan to say a few words initially to quickly get onto it. And
okay, I didn't expect I will do that. First, I will congratulate and sincerely thank the International Center for Clean Water, which is at the IIT Madras campus, for having taken this initiative to try and see how they will bring a serious engagement and locking of minds with leaders and citizens in Chennai. Chennai, interestingly, is about the same size as Bangalore, one could argue, on a 1 or 2 million kind of gap. I think you are at about 11 to 12 million. We are at the same, I'm speaking just now for Bangalore. We are at the same 11 to 12 million people, or 1.2 crore people. And if I multiply that by the regular 130 to 135 liters, and again, that is a number that a lot of us have differences upon. Let's assume that to be an average of about 130. We are clearly talking of about 140 to 150 crore liters of water that your city needs or Bangalore needs today. Now, what happened is that in the last 12 months, we told ourselves we will try and see how we will bring citizen-led water savings with continued, iterated, reiterated sets of solutions on what you and I as individuals and as bulk water users can do. The world of water basically is not about any technical solutions. It is effectively about how you and I can get as many more people who are lay citizens into what I will call the community of water. We have, many organizations from across the world which have shown interest. We have just now Mary Conley-Eggert there. Good morning, Mary. It must be 7:30 a.m. 6:30 a.m. for you. She is from Central Time, which is Wisconsin, Chicago, and such parts. So the Global Water Works came in and they are partnering this process for every city which wants to take this up. The ICCW with Mr. Nandakumar leading it, and with Sripati with all his experience of working in industry of the last, say, 15, 16 years, and his total, experience in water itself of about 20 plus years. I think he's been working on it from about 1998 or so. We suddenly realized that there is a phenomenal platform that Chennai can take. And this meeting today is clearly a consultative session, as Sripati told me yesterday or day before. He wants every leader from Chennai, every concerned citizen from Chennai to speak on 3 or 4 points from which we can learn. Just now, we heard Mr. Kelkar say that he's here to listen and learn. If everyone speaks for about 60 seconds and we get a drift of what each of you think of what the city needs, I think we will learn and move into the next fortnight session, which will be, if today is the 13th, on 27th, we'll have another. We should therefore be having about 25 sessions or 25 or 26 sessions this year of 2022 in Chennai. Over to you, Sripati. I think I've taken more time than I should.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hari. Thank you, Dr. Hari, for this opportunity again to, moderate this session. I think you gave me a title, Mission Director. I don't know whether I'm capable of being a mission director, but at least try and do some justice to what we intend to do collectively on this aspect of water. We wanted to coin the word mission for saving 1,000 crore liters is what we are trying to achieve, or at least reach some targets of so many water to be saved, so many kiloliters of water to be saved. So in that direction, since you have already outlined how this discussion is going to happen, at least for this day and many more discussions to come, I will take the privilege of taking 3 minutes to probably give a quick overview of what we intend to do through this Chennai Action Forum. In the last week, we were a part of the Trichy Action Forum, wherein we discussed many things. And this Chennai Action Forum would be something like this. We have a lot of ideas. We have lots of solutions, very rich in nature, very, calculative in nature, very absorbing in nature to get some quick solutions. But whatever may be the solution, they are in abundance. They are quite abundant. Just like what we have water right now, we have rainwater in a very abundant manner. Groundwater levels are 4 feet, 5 feet below the ground level. So they are available in abundance. Within a few months, what is going to happen is, we all know in Chennai, I'm talking about Chennai, within a couple of months, we'll be saying, where is water, where it is, how do we access it? There is a lot of shortage, mismatch, many things are going to happen. So to avoid such situations, what all we can bring in? Probably this Chennai Action Forum could help us in bringing out solutions, bringing out quick strategies, bringing out quick actions that can be done as a collective approach. I will come to it in terms of how collective approaches we can think of. Again, as Dr. Hari said, let us be quick in putting 3 points. First point, I've already conveyed that it is abundance in terms of its richness of solutions, ideas, technologies, everything. But where to do, how to act on it is what is the first point I would like to bring in. With lots of storage to be created, a lot of recharge wells to be created. Yesterday, I told you, Dr. Hari, we were talking to a lot of people who wanted to attend this session, and probably many of them are joining slowly. The resident welfare associations and all that, particularly in the areas of Mylapore, Mandavali and others, they have started saying, water levels have grown up to 4 feet below ground level. And it is all because of recharging, all because of several activities that they have done during the rainwater that they were able to capture. So the second or third would be on managing the entire ecosystem of water, watersheds, water bodies and all that. And efficiency, somebody said on they have already put some lot of aerators and all that in the systems. So this is one way. Recovery, how the recovery could be done better. Last but not the least, O&M, operation and maintenance of anything and everything that has been installed. That's why we have Mr. Ashok Natarajan today to highlight on how this could be done, how others have adopted to these techniques. What is the current level of all this? Of course, Ashok wanted to present many things on using a PPT and all that, but definitely we assure you, sir, this session will give us a lot of interactions and a lot of way out on how to adopt the existing things that you may recommend or anybody else has already done. Let us make it so interactive as possible so that we are able to do this O&M better. That is the first point. The second point is we are trying to bring out something called the water sustainable zones for the city of Chennai. We also discussed something for Trichy. For example, if you take city of Chennai, suppose we intend to do this, we may think like Chengalpat is one zone. The second zone would be Tiruporur. Tiruporur is one zone which encompasses all the stretch from Adayar, Besan Nagar towards OMR and all that towards Tiruporur. I'm just giving the suggestion. People can ponder on it and say, no, this is not the zone and that is not the zone. We can still work on zones. That is one idea. And the third zone is Ennur Gumudi Pundi stretch. That is one zone, the North Chennai zone. And the fourth would
Sripati, you have crossed 4 minutes. I'm just reminding you.
I will stop it. This is the Sri Pelambur zone, and we will discuss many more things. So this is how we would like to take this idea into the next action forums and develop strategies for doing that.
Just reminding everybody, whoever wants to speak, I request you to turn on your video because we are recording, and later we are going to make short video extracts of each of you as leaders speaking. So it'll be good to have your video also on, please. Thank you. Who is next? Yeah, back to you.
So I would request Professor Pradeep to say a few words similar to what Dr. Hari was mentioning on 3 points that we would like to take up as actions to keep the action forum going and get some ideas immediately. Thank you.
Well, it is always a pleasure to be on such discussions. Thank you, Hariharan and Sripati and colleagues, stalwarts here, so I don't want to mention names. Water needs people. Solutions for water is for people, and these solutions have to be found by people. And first and foremost, committed people are required. Commitment can be in many, many ways. But an important aspect of commitment is financial commitment too. Otherwise, nothing is going to move. And an initiative of this kind for Chennai to be water secure by our resources and our commitment, our strategies I would say a very small portion of everyone's resources to be committed, not just today, every day. I say 0.1% or something of that kind every month to be put into something of this kind. I commit to that contribution if a structure can be created. The second that I would say is that for anybody to find solutions, these solutions have to be locally grown and sustained. And fortunately, Chennai has the best of minds like Shekhar Raghavan and Indu Gandragade and all these people. So therefore, we should pool everybody together, the best of talents in Chennai, those who are friends of Chennai, like Mary who has joined from across, connecting together the best of people. And today, in the era of digital life, everything is possible. And this meeting itself is possible because of that. If Sripati and Hariharan can take initiative in this, the Friends for Wow. If that network can be created. The third that I would say is solutions locally have to be cataloged. Just as Shekhar Raghavan has excellently demonstrated, there are several examples in and around Chennai and Bangalore and Friends of Chennai. We need to catalog them. We need to have energy coming out from these, and that if we grow together in all these three areas, one is resources, second is in terms of people, third in terms of technology, we would achieve the goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. It was very quite crisp to make us work now.
I'll only say this in response very quickly, if you don't mind, Sripati.
Yeah.
You mentioned about cataloging and such. We have already done some. We will share that with Wow Chennai. We will put this up in some website, including the ICCW one. I think we will discuss that and see how we can do that before the next session of Chennai Wow. Go on, Sripati.
It should be inviting for everybody. So that way, anybody can pull in globally.
So, we'll do that.
So, Mr. Nandakumar, your thoughts, please.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. It's fantastic to be in this forum today, and thank you, Dr. Hari, for this initiative, which we discussed some weeks ago, and now it is finally seeing the light of day. I have a few points. I'll just touch upon that. One is back on the envelope calculation that I did for 1,000 crore liters per day, I mean per year, is something that seemed to be daunting. But when I calculated, we said we have a population of a crore plus in Chennai and approximately 100 liters per person per day. And if you really want to save 1,000 crore, it's just 9 days or 10 days of water that we need to save per person per year. Okay, so that's eminently feasible. So that seems to be, for me, a major area where it would exceed also the targets, provided everybody chips in. So the potential is very much there. I'm looking at the other aspect of Chennai where, unlike Bangalore, there is only a fixed charge for the corporation water. So this is something that was worrying me, and I was trying to see how to make an incentive for people to start saving water. Because as Professor Pradeep said, there is monetary incentive, then things move. I mean, I'm looking from a different angle. And I just would like to briefly touch upon the experience I had in my apartments in Chennai. Last year, we had to increase the maintenance charges by 600 rupees per flat, just for water charges. In addition, we found that people were buying bottled water, spending 400 to even 800 rupees per month. So that's over 1,000, 1,200 rupees per month only for water people are spending, where we are assuming it's free. The reason is the corporation water doesn't reach, plus we pay a cess for that. We're buying tankers, we're having a water treatment plant. So many things are happening. At the end of the day, we are spending big money. So I am proposing that every citizen in Chennai, irrespective of where he is staying, looks at a water meter and looks at adding a water meter to his flat. Today it's available at 100 rupees a month, the maintenance cost, and the savings would be far more than water decides the kind of contribution they will make to the society in terms of water saving. So these are two major areas. And the third area is the water bodies. Chennai has several, used to have several lakes which are now dry. And on the river water, there are 3 rivers and a Buckingham Canal. So certainly we could look at restoring these water bodies. I don't know if that is part of this program, but certainly in a city like Chennai, if there is a lot of rain as we faced the last month or so, and the water table is already high, wherever the rainwater go, we have floods. So we need to restore water bodies and create catchment areas for the rainwater to be absorbed or held. And otherwise people will, there'll be a disincentive for them to invest in the rainwater harvesting. The water body restoration, water meters for individual flats to reduce the consumption, and the fact that 1,000 crore liters is not at all a big deal considering the amount of water we are consuming. I think we have a very good year ahead to achieve our goals.
One clarification, you said 1,000 rupees approximately could be 1,200 rupees per month per flat in your apartment.
Yes.
How many flats do you have?
We have 256 flats.
So that's 2.5 lakhs per month for the apartment, and that's therefore 30 lakhs roughly, or 32 lakhs for the year that you're spending.
Yes, we
Additionally
spending. Correct.
Fair. Good point. We'll come back on this. Back to you, Sripati.
Shekhar Raghavan, are you there? Can you give a quick suggestion?
Yeah. Good evening. I just want to make one point. I've also been writing about it recently. Madras Musings carried me article and so on. See, this Chennai plus 2021 different from the previous ones. The previous ones, we had the Sembrambakam overflow flooding the city. Whereas this year, it is our own groundwater that is flooding us. So it's I would call it very healthy flooding. But then people have, most of us have not understood this. So whenever there is stagnation, people want me to put a recharge well. I tell them only because of recharge wells, we have this flooding. Not that I'm saying we should not harvest rain. But the point is, this time, the emphasis should be on extraction. Extraction meaning, see, we should realize that our aquifer is in 2 discontinuous layers, separated by hard rock. There is one layer above hard rock, which we call the alluvial layer, and one within hard rock. So people should have open wells. Every house, every apartment should have an open well, and they start extracting water from the shallow aquifer. Only then water is going to deplete, flood is going to deplete. Unfortunately, what happened last year, we had copious supply of metro water. And people think the best water in the world is metro water. So they didn't bother to tap their groundwater, including my own apartment. I told them, stop extracting metro water. Let us all extract well water. See, all of us have open wells here. So we'll have to, so a suggestion for the Metro Water Board is to charge for whatever we consume. That is not happening now. See, in Chennai, there is a flat rate for 6 months. However much you consume, only pay that amount. So if it is proportional to our consumption, then people will shift to the groundwater source. If this is not going to happen, then we are going to have this 2021 repeat almost every other year. Thank you.
Thank you for the quick remarks, Shekhar Raghavan. We always keep learning from you, as always. Every time when we meet in such platforms, we come with a new learning with you. Thank you for sharing this information. Since we are now at 6:20, Dr. Hari, I would request
there are more people here who might want to talk from Chennai. Anybody from Chennai who can.
Mr. Sripati, maybe a few names you could announce in sequence so that they are prepared also to speak.
That's right.
That's why I would like to, request Mr. Ashok Natarajan to say his few points that he had come prepared for such discussion today. And we are about to, hear from Sunil Kurian also from Mahindra World City.
Yeah. All right. If you want, if you move like just now as what I would suggest is see if you can list a few more names and request them to see if they can speak after Mr. Ashok Natarajan.
Yeah, I'm trying to list it out. By the time Mr. Ashok Natarajan completes his points and Sunil also completes his array of suggestions, they will be also ready. I'll give them.
I have suggestion. I think Indukant Ragadesh should be asked to say a few words, and Saravanan is there. Janaki Raman Saravanan, he can also say a few words.
Okay, I'll include in that list which I'm preparing.
Yeah.
So over to Mr. Ashok Natarajan for his thoughts on a specific suggestion on how operation and maintenance is required. Probably that will be a very large thing to discuss at this point of time, Mr. Ashok. But the essence of what is metering, why metering is required, and probably these ideas should be practiced now in the form of actions. What everyone has been saying that we have done this and so on. We would request you to throw some quick light on all these points. Probably you can take 5 minutes to say something about it. And then we quickly get into interactive mode on this. Over to Mr. Ashok, please.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to speak to you from both Mr. Hariharan has nicely portrayed about the consumer side and some pockets of excellence happening in various colonies or housing estates and things like that. But I think if you compare even Asia, not even the developed countries, how Malaysia has gone, Manila has gone, Vietnam, Non-Pem, leaving aside even Singapore in Asia, all of them are benefited due to bringing in good modern operation and maintenance practice of reducing the NRW. This is called non-revenue water loss management. This is very important for Indian, whether it's a utility or a private customer or a colony or a tenant building, to really look at it, because it's basically defines the volume of water produced minus volume of water billed actually. So India, we have very, very poor examples of this. And today we do not do something what is called as the water balance. How an individual set of flats, same Swendra Kumar was mentioning, 250 of them are there, and how they do the water balance. Similar to that, we need to do it at a city level to really bring down. If you're talking about 1,000 crore liter, it's very much possible. I've done some initial studies way back in 2016 in Chennai Metro Water, and I even found out at the time, the earlier secretary, I told him, you can save as much as only in Chennai in terms of value of money, taking the approximate figures of the cost of treated water is about 8 rupees, and commercial rates of tariff that we have about 40 rupees, and the flat rate of tariff without even changing, you can save something like 593 crores rupees of water per year. And it has to have good technical, commercial, and planning intervention in this whole thing. So my fundamental take in this whole thing is that everything can be done. Your water, you can do good rainwater harvesting, you can do, only the citizens can do as much. But if you want to reform a city, if you want to make a lesser, see how Manila, Malaysia, people like Vietnam, Non-Pem, lesser GDPs than us. Probably our Tamil Nadu or Bangalore itself has got a bigger GDP than all these countries, but they have done very well is to save water. And they have done this non-revenue water program very dearly. And today I am at a critical situation where I really lend acting as a mentor to the government of India in these aspects. So I would like to drive home this point, because putting across a water balance in terms of determining your input volume, the authorized connections, the billed volumes, apparent losses, it is very, very important. And as Hariharan said, it is not going to, technology is there everywhere to take. You can actually get the best of technologies, whether from India or outside. but how you apply it and how you bring in these things. And for that, as citizens, we should motivate, not only we should practice conservation and water loss reduction, but we should actually make our utilities, that is Chennai Metro Water, to run like a utility and do that for the water reduction, and so that they can find themselves sustainable. Today, cities like Bangalore to a large extent have practiced it. Unfortunately, in Chennai, we have not done it, or neither of the cities in Tamil Nadu have done it. And this is something which I want to bring my points to the table like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Natarajan. It was very crisp and many takeaways on action points.
Sripati, just one moment. We want to ask a couple of questions of Mr. Natarajan, but before that, Mary says she has to leave for some reason.
Oh, okay.
Would you want to share a couple of thoughts before you exit, Mary?
Yes, I'm just so pleased to be in the midst of all of these change agents, people who have done the work and who are making a new commitment to a city that just a few years ago was that day zero target we all were concerned about. And the beautiful work that you've done in Chennai, becoming the first to scale water reuse and to commit to the rainwater harvesting. I posted a note in our Global Waterworks community about the variety of resources that were recommended by the UN Disaster Risk and Resilience Program. And what's beautiful is the World of Water Action Forum addresses all of those, plus lakes. And so, well, lakes will address on the 21st, January 21st here, with a program to support your lakes and the health of the water resources. But thank you for letting me be a part of this. Nanda Kumar, with your work with ICCW, and Sripati leading this session, and Dr. Pradeep, you've been raved about by Frank Bergano and the team here for a long time. So thank you, Hari. That's all I just wanted to say before I go.
And thank you so much for that wonderful report on Chennai that you put out, this Global Waterworks website. Very lovely report, and I quickly sent in my comments on that. Well, if you can put in that link on the chat box, Mary, there may be others who might want to sort of, log in and pitch in with their comments and observations, I guess.
And
right?
to connect with you, and to connect with you.
And to connect with you, that's right. You know, you could do
yes,
that.
I will put my contact information. So we
Thanks.
welcome all to the community. Thank you, Dr. Hari.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Excited to see this a year from now. Bye-bye.
Absolutely, yeah.
So proceeding with what we have been trying to do, Mr. Smith,
Before, but if you don't mind, but I'll just ask a couple of questions of Mr. Ashok on the basis of the observations he made, which is interesting, or which is important for the citizens of Chennai to possibly reflect upon and come to some conclusions, because this meeting today is essentially to draw as many such wishes and aspirations. For example, we heard Ms. Nandkumar say, well, I don't know if water bodies is part of WOW's framework. I would say we don't need to be sort of sandboxed by any such thing. Whatever as experts, whatever as concerned leaders and as professionals in the waters domain, anyone has felt about, we must listen to today. Mr. Natarajan, I'll ask you this question. You mentioned Phnom Penh. You and I know that in 2002 or 3, even if it had a dictatorial regime, they succeeded on getting in 24/7 continuous water supply, thanks to some ADB effort and so on. I remember being there in 2004, in 2005 again. I know Manila and ADB did something to support these people. My question to you is this. Singapore is a very bad example for us. There is a young man here called Adriel, who is speaking from New York. He's from Singapore. Now, these are places which have extremely high governance. And you and I know what we don't have as governance in our country. I won't take any particular city, into any discussion of this kind. Therefore, do you believe that despite every effort that the government makes, if as citizens, we don't take these initiatives to, make ourselves as independent of the water grid as possible, there will be no future for us. It is like in the 1990s, for example, you remember those gen sets that every shop in every market street had, because there was a complete collapse of the power generating sector's ability to meet our needs. And we used to have 4 hours and 5 hours of shutdowns. So when the government cannot do something, citizens have to take things into their own hands and see what they can do to solve their own challenges. And India, there cannot be any other country which is a better example of such a situation being here today. And we know that this is not going away for at least the next 10 to 15 years. What would you think, Mr. Natarajan? Do you think we should therefore emulate a Singapore or a Phnom Penh? Or do you think we should create our own models of self-sufficiency with independence from the grid as much as we can secure?
Yeah, Mr. Hariharan, I would say that we should have our own methodology of achieving it. I'm quoting these examples from developing countries for Asia, but I would like to take another example. I consulted with this company called Watco, which is 1 year back, which has done the first 24/7 water supply in the city of Puri. 2.5 lakh, 250,000 consumers, population there, and roughly about 80,000 connections. And they have divided, they had a 54% loss. And they reduced it to about, they claim that they have reduced it to about 15%. I helped them in the metering initiative, and they've done a wonderful program. How did they succeed? It's also the same India, and it's a much poorer state compared to rest of the states like Tamil Nadu or Bangalore or anybody. They had limited resources. You don't require a great deal of money to do this. And even the example, you don't need an ADB fund to really do this. But what they did was they introduced community-led saving schemes. They actually promoted this. This is a very, very good case studies. I can send it to all of you. I'm also a part of the case study. I'm presenting this in the World Water Laws in June in one of the countries in Europe, where Jal Shaktis, the group of women folks in each of these urban local bodies and cities, have been groomed to actually help in water conservation, reading the meters, knowing who are the people who are pilfering water, bringing things into place by a very unregulated and a very supportive, and it's a very, very incentive-based scheme. It's worked miracles in that city. Today, they are the shining example of India. We claim that we have got 500 large cities. We claim that 4,780 mini cities in the country. Not even one city other than Jamshedpur, which is a private sector Tata initiative, can claim continuous water. First of all, where is the service? First of all, they need to deliver the service. So the very important thing, see, water is a state subject. It is a utility. Individuals can play some enabling role, not beyond. Like what Mr. Shankar is doing in terms of rainwater, or Professor Janakarajan is doing in terms of water retaining structures and things like that. But what I am suggesting is this has to be a community-led initiative. And there should be some amount of technology. I don't propagate the idea of what you have put in your website. You should go for IoT meters. There are no understanding of metrology characteristics. When the meter is used to read a volume of water, the metrology characteristics are quite different, actually. It doesn't, no IoT meter, and IoT meters are very few. You might claim there are many college professors and people who can manufacture these meters, but they don't comply with the standards, which is very important. So you can do small initiatives. You can bring in technical improvements. You can bring in commercial improvement. Giving the community-led approach is what. And primarily, there should be a cell formed by the government of Tamil Nadu. It should give a patronage. Why Phnom Penh was a success? They formed a step-down company. See, Phnom Penh, they had the dictatorial rule, but they were charging the dictator too. He was paying money. He was asked to pay money. So you have to create, and that's what Watco did. Watco is nothing than an SPV arm of the government of Orissa. They created a one step below. They empowered the CEO to run the company on professional lines. And he has done it within 2 years' time. So the government gave us support. So today we have access to all the funds. Today the Amrut program is a huge program. And so we can use all these things to really deliver this value. That's my point. You have to do your own methodologies.
Sure. In fact, Odisha has been doing writing a few interesting success stories. Puri became the first city, I think, in the state to be completely 100% 24/7 continuous. There's one more city, I think, Bhubaneswar itself, I think, or one of the cities, yeah, which is gone. Now, there is anyway, I thank you so much for your inputs. Very valuable, very interesting. I think we should, over the next few fortnights, come back to you and pick your mind on the Watco model, on things that you said about how you make a business case for this 593 crore savings that you wrote maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago, or what you said also about this, this phenomena of 500 large cities. What are those examples that we can take for Chennai itself? We'll come back to these. Over to you, Sripath.
Just to add the one point, the urban secretary there, who is doing this, Madhivadanan, is a friend of ours too. So we should take his inputs. Yeah.
Lovely. We can possibly invite him for
You're a student, isn't it, sir? He's from IIT Madras. Yeah, postgrad. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, wonderful. We'll do that. The water sector.
I request Mr. Sunil to share his success story. I'm, bringing Mr. Sunil Kurian from Mahindra World City. Welcome, Mr. Sunil. I hope.
Mr. Sripati, am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. At the outset, I want to thank you all for giving me an opportunity. I'm really honored to be able to speak and listen to such an eminent panel of experienced people all around me. I will have to give a few lines of introduction of what Mahindra World City is about for those who would not know. So Mahindra World City is what we call as integrated business cities. We are in the business, we are part of the Mahindra group. We are in the business of building what we call as integrated business cities. We have fully developed 2 such cities. We call this business as integrated cities and industrial clusters. So we have 2 such cities, one which is about 1,500 acres located here in Chennai, very close to, on the way towards Chengalpet. And there's another city which we develop in Jaipur, that's about 3,000 acres. And then we have 2 small clusters, which we actually, you could call them as industrial clusters, close to around 600 acres, one in the northern part of Chennai and one in Ahmedabad or on the Ahmedabad sector. So when we call of this as integrated cities, I'll talk to you briefly about what we do in terms of water management. I had heard people talking about Jamshedpur, Puri and all other places. I would say I'm a very small learner. I take care of operations and maintenance for this group, where we handle, and in terms of Chennai, we sort of supply close to around 2,000 kiloliters of water to the citizens of the city. When I say the citizens of the city, we have more than 2,000 odd residential enclaves inside the city of 1,500 acres, with more than about 60 odd operational companies. Some of those names that you would like to hear are companies like Infosys. We have all the BMW cars being manufactured in Mahindra World City, so on and so on. In terms of population, on a daily incoming population direct employment basis, we have close to around 45,000 people being employed. You could take it as 1.5 times of indirect employment. When we talk of our water supply infrastructure, in Chennai, we supply close to 2,000 liters of water. We are one of those places where we ensure 24/7 supply of water. And I am proud to say that my non-revenue water is less than 5%, and we've been maintaining it for the past 7 years and more. And we've been moving upwards and trying to track and ensure that we reduce this further on a day in and day out basis. We are working with a lot of startup companies. We are also looking at IoT mechanisms on the way. We've already completed 1 odd proof of concept with a company whereby we're trying to ensure that we have a live dashboard showing where water is being supplied and how, and being able to manage it. I would say there are a lot of lessons to be learned from all of you, but I would also want to say that there are small learnings that we have achieved, and we would like to learn more and put it forward. So a couple of things which we try and do is definitely ensure that this plain is maintained green. The trees are not taken away. In fact, because of the trees that we have in this place, we've planted more than 2 million trees. We ensure that the temperature within Mahindra World City, as recorded, stays below by about 2 to 3 degrees less than the surroundings where we are. We also utilize other streams of water. So the city water supply as we have planned it and we have suggested it to governments, including the government of Rajasthan, also ensures that close to 60% of the water that we use for the city water supply is being.
If I may step in here, sorry, for efficiency of time, there must have been in the beginning a point of time. I mean, you are an investor-backed company, let's face it. You must have had a very difficult situation at some point where you had to make a business case to somebody in the management for that incremental cost that people would have perceived as additional cost for whatever you installed as water management systems. Where was that challenge? What was the beginning of this, and how has that transformed in the company where investor constituents also of your company are saying, yes, it's very good to have you spend this extra money? Or do you actually
Mr. Hari,
spend
I'm
extra
proud
money?
to say that I don't spend extra money.
Good.
I charge for water the way it is to be charged. Unlike, okay, since now I would be talking out of turn since I've not completed certain part of it. But what I want to say is, all over our country, unfortunately, people have not been made to realize the value of water. Right? Water is subsidized by up to and more than 60% by the government. In turn, people get the feeling that water is free, which is not right. Right? Water is a resource. Water has to be managed as a resource, and water has to be charged as a resource, is what I have learned out of all these years of management. I'm sure I'm very much younger and lesser experienced than all of you, but this is a lesson that I have ensured, that I've told my company, and I have ensured that the citizens of the within the city are also learning. So I think I've answered your question.
The lesson therefore is that if there is no rationalization of water tariff, you cannot either have innovation or you cannot have efficient water management. Is that right?
You're right, Mr. Hari, partly. It's not rationalization of water has to happen. That's where I came to that 60% point, where I said that a city should be designed in a manner whereby at least around 60% of water should be recycled. That's the way we have planned our cities, right? And it can be done.
How much do you charge your water user inside your city?
So the water use is charged as per our production rates. We don't charge profits on water. We charge it as per our production rates. So similarly, like even what we also do is we subsidize the charges for recycled water. Like say the sewage treatment, if I spend say 40 rupees, if I'm charging say for example 50 rupees per KL of water, I charge only 25 rupees for them to utilize grey water. So what I'm trying to explain to the esteemed panel who are sitting, who are here listening to me is, we have to be asking the government, or rather prodding the government into thinking in these lines. There are governments in the country who have actually thought on these lines, but they've not moved much forward, because everywhere there is this populist measure where people feel that water, especially water and electricity, has to be subsidized to the tune of people thinking it is free for all, and thereby we encourage wastage. I think I'll leave it at this because I'm sure everybody wants to talk.
Thank you. As a corporate leader, thank you so much for your insights. What you're telling us is, in a homogenized environment where there is a commonality of objectives within the company and its stakeholder constituents or clients or whatever, you can do what you have managed to do. The moment I step out of something like that and hit the heterogeneity of the kind of user disparities that we have in any city, and when that is combined with the lack of governance, shall we say, I don't want to stress that too much, you know what happens. If we heard Mr. Ashok Natarajan, when he took that Phnom Penh, it's a well-known example anyway, where even the dictator, when he defaulted on paying monies, he was told, thank you so much, sir, you had better shut up and pay. You cannot do that in this country anywhere, whatever city you're in. Ladies and gentlemen, to all of you as leaders here, I'd like you to think about what Mr. Kurian presented just now and what Mr. Natarajan said of other cities. And at this point of time, I want to extend a warm greeting and welcome and a good morning to Dr. Raj Rajaram from Chicago. He's a doyen. He's one of those people who also connected us to ICCW, I think, between WOW and ICCW. If we have anything at all going today, thanks also to one mail or call that came in from Raj. Raj, do you want to say something? I saw you putting up some things on the chat box. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Dr. Hari. Greetings to all from Chicago. I live on the coast of the Great Lakes, which contain 20% of the fresh water in the world. And even in the city of Chicago, our mayor about 10, 11 years ago said there will not be any free water anymore, even to religious institutions or to all these apartments, high-rise apartments. We cannot measure it and we are not charging them the way we should. So he took a very unpopular move and raised the water rates, put meters in every high-rise building, in every religious institution, and he made sure that there is, like Sunil was saying, the non-revenue water should not be more than 5%. That is the goal in every American city. And by repairing all the old pipes. So what this happened when we started doing this, charging everybody what they should be charged, we had enough money to replace all our old infrastructure, which is 200 years old, leaking, and in the middle of the winter when it's freezing, a pipe would burst. And people have to work in that, water is being wasted, they have to work in that environment to fix that leak. So since then, a systematic way of identifying which are the pipes which need to be replaced, need to be repaired, all that has taken place. And since then, our situation has improved. And initially, there was a lot of complaint with the poor people who we have about 30 to 40% of the people in Chicago who still depend on free food. There's so much hunger there. So those people, he said, we will give free to them, all the rest, or we will give them a reduced rate, but all the rest pay their share. So unless we do that, we cannot solve this problem in India.
What would be your advice to Chennai citizens on their journey of exploring efficient worlds of water this year? I mean, there can be very long-term objectives, but we want things to be done within reasonably short terms. Dr. Raj?
I think Sunil's model is excellent. We have to do that, charge everybody what it costs us. There's nothing free in this world. And so we have to do that. And I'm so glad that ICCW is participating in this, because unless religious research institutions like ICCW work with the common citizen and start helping with access to clean water for the people who are in most need, we will not solve this water problem. And one small episode I'll tell you, I was in Chennai in 2004, and I was seeing these trucks calling Kudi Tannir. And I was so shocked. I said, in a city like Chennai, why should we pollute the air with these diesel trucks? And as the trucks were going on the road, I was seeing they were dropping quite a bit of the water and wasting water to deliver water to an apartment. This is unacceptable. So at that point, Chennai's mayor, Tamil Nadu's chief minister, took the lead of mandating rainwater harvesting. And since then, situation has improved. Similarly, I would like to see mandatory recycling of wastewater in all apartments through decentralized STPs, and so that reuse of grey water. So we consider water as one resource, which is a shortage of, and people are getting sick and not being productive because of lack of access to clean water, especially in the slums and in some rural communities around our cities. This is unacceptable in the 21st century. And with ICCW's leadership, WOW's leadership, and people like in industry like Sunil, we can do it. It is possible right within our reach, but we have to get the will to do it. And we have to, and what is government? Government is nothing but a representative of ours. Unless we force the government to do it, they will not do it. So citizen action, like what Hari has taken through WOW action forums, are extremely critical in every city. And unless we do all this together, we are in this together, or we all go down together. We don't want to go down. We want to raise up and be productive citizens of India. So that's my message to you.
Great. I take 3 points from what you said, Dr. Raj. Just see if you'll correct me on this. One, you're saying, I'll leave out that first one on pipes and replacement. That's not in our hands. It goes back to the government. So I will not take that. At a citizen level, number one, you're saying, how can ICCW galvanize working with common citizens, that is lay citizens being brought into the water community? I think that's the first point you're making. Please note, Sitapati, and we must see what we can do from this there. The second one you're saying is that there must be mandatory recycling with decentralized STPs. So you are focusing on localized solutions, therefore, from what I hear of you. The third one you're saying is we must get leaders from industry as well as policymakers. I mean, if you look up the chat box, you'll see Mr. Ashok Ratrajan put up another very interesting insight when you talked about water tariffs and rationalizing. He's saying we can do a telescopic sort of thing. I mean, I'm sure you'll read what he has put up there on the chat box. There are different ways of handling this whole issue of water and tariff. And if the tariffs are right, if the landscape is set right for such tariffs, I'm certain that there will be a space for innovation of the kind that ICCW has also been incubating.
Yes.
I leave that there. Over to you, Sripati. Excuse me for speaking out of turn by asking Dr. Raj to come in. You will see what you want.
One point that I want to add, Hari,
Yes,
is that when Sunil was talking about fantastic points and very
Absolutely.
nicely implemented, the
Right.
key point is also that we have been subsidizing everything. Let's understand this issue also. We have been subsidizing, let us say, gas, petroleum. We don't pay for the CO2. We subsidize iron. We don't pay for the CO2. We subsidize cement, etc. So subsidy is part of ours, and that larger thinking that Sunil is bringing, onto the table, if that is about sustainability, and that has to be sort of taken forward by all these institutions, and therefore this wow has to also get into the school system, right? So then only this whole wow will sustain.
Absolutely.
I leave it just there, and there are many other.
I have to respond to what you said, though there is paucity of time. This thinking on subsidizing air to water to everything else is not new. Patrick Geddes wrote about it in 1926. Louis Mumford, who spent some time in Chennai and Benares, wrote about it in the 1930s, I think. You know that the social welfare model itself, the neoliberalist economic theory from 1970 or so, has led us to where we are, where water is the holy cow. You cannot touch it. You cannot ever increase, the tariffs for power of water. Jayalalitha was the only man in the whole business, I thought, who brought that change and said, I will charge you 18 rupees at, peak load hours if you're going to use my grid power. She brought in a whole lot of other things, thanks to administrators who gave her the ideas. Now, that is why it's very, dangerous to tread on such thin ice, which is to do with government and governance. But your point is taken, which goes back 100 years. That is not going to change. If at all we can do anything, we have to see what we can within this serious limitation of heterogeneity that we have. Yes, Sunil, you can come in if you like. You have to unmute, please. You have to unmute.
I know. So the only point I was trying to highlight was subsidy. You're very right in terms of subsidy. But what we have to be understanding is subsidy should not be on the basis of popularity. That's where we all seem to be going.
Of course.
That's where we all seem to be going in.
Obviously.
And that's the reason why we have such challenges when it is electricity or water. I leave it at this. I know it's a very eminent panel. We can always have more discussions later.
Back
right?
to
I believe.
thank you, Pradeep.
Thank you, Dr. Hari, for moderating it. Though I'm, getting into a mode of moderation, and now that I'm learning it from you, this is an action point for me to do great moderation that you have been doing. But since we have 6 more minutes or 4 more minutes, I would say.
So we have time. We have till 7:15, by the way.
7:15. I have listed a few people who are there in the panel right now.
Please.
Mr. Janak, are you there?
Oh, yes, of course. We have to listen to Professor Janak because, his story with water goes back at least 30 years at the Institute of Development Studies. Yes.
Mr. Janak Rajan, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes.
Yeah, probably you would say a few words on what you would think that would be the action points for Chennai that we need to think of, and have several names that we can think of. Chandra is listening to us. Watson, Chandra, then Sri
So
Krishna
Professor
Mohan Rao.
Janak, over to you.
UV Krishna
Yeah.
Mohan Rao. He's also listening to us. I would request him to be in the next list of people who can talk about something on water. Uday Kelkar, you mentioned something in the beginning.
Yes.
And Saravanan also. Saravanan, he has been a geotechnical expert for Chennai, and he may also give. And we have one more person, Prakash Murthy, who has been associated with ICCW in implementing certain aerators and things like that in ICCW, IIT Madras Research Park. If you are available, you can also say a few words before we close.
Lovely.
So over to Mr. Professor Janak Radhan.
Thank you, Sripati. Well, I have been listening to all the people, and it was quite a learning experience. And also, I could really see different perspectives and different viewpoints on the very important key issue of the water, particularly the urban water. The time is not really much, and we have got a very little time. So, I would like to really touch upon very central point. Okay, water. Yes, I've been listening to Hariharan also. I mean, he was really making a very pertinent point. Let me tell you, as regards water, as regards urban water, as regards drinking water, as it is supplied today, no one can criticize. That's not an issue at all. Easily one can criticize. And again, on the other extreme, we can go to another point of view of thinking about what would be or what could be an ideal system. Okay, these are two extremes. These are indeed two extremes. So one is on a very ideal system, where you really have to think about minimizing the water use, 24/7 water supply, and charging for the water, and reuse the water, and all kinds of things to make it a Singapore model or whatever. That's one extreme. Perfect and just efficient, yes. And another extreme, you got an issue where what you see in many cities in the country today, particularly in India. Now, in between, one can really think about lots of reformist, activities, measures, and one can think of issues of that kind. But the key issue here is, should we really invoke the basic principle of water is a basic human right? It's a most fundamental. People's right to have water is a very fundamental. It's like right to have air. It's like right to have water. It's a fundamental. You can't live without water. So it's in our constitution. It's a fundamental right. So in which case, how do you really charge water? I'm not saying that you should not charge water. You should charge water. But then this is a very important issue. One can think about various mechanisms of charging for water. But this is one thing which we need to really keep in mind, that water is a fundamental issue. At the same time, we also have to keep in mind equity and access. So access is an issue, and the equitable access is another issue. And also in that context, one has to think about the sustainable use and sustainable development. So keeping all these in mind, now what do you achieve, where we are, and particularly the point that Hariharan is very beautifully raised is a heterogeneous society. In a heterogeneous society, unlike in a Mahendra society, how do you really have that kind of efficiency? It is very difficult. I wouldn't say that it's just not the issue of a populist measure, or what one could call the competitive populism, which drives one to that kind of measure of supplying water at a zero price or whatever. Now, what do you do? How do you really arrive at a sort of optimal position, optimal standard, and how do you really achieve that kind of optimal efficiency is a key issue. I think that's where one has to really look at. There are many ways in between these two extremes one can think about.
If you had 3 boons to give away for Chennai as a gift for this year of 2022, what would those 3 boons be?
I would really, first thing that I would really touch upon is, that's what I was going to come to Hariharan. First thing that I would like to touch upon is, do we have a system of rainfall accounting?
Okay,
Why is that we are not in a position to account the rainfall?
great.
Do we really deserve desalination plants in a city where the rainfall is 1,400 millimeters? What is
Absolutely.
happening?
Absolutely.
What is our problem? Where are we committing blunders? And we are only talking about the supply side, whether we
Correct.
got the drought, or whether we'll have enough water, or
Perfect.
whether Chennai is a thirstiest city, or are we
Excellent.
going to touch a 0 day? This is stupid. I don't agree at all. I would
Correct.
like to. I'm going to touch upon a very key issue of what is this runoff that you are talking about. 99% surface runoff. Why is that? Why is that so much of water is runoff? And
Perfect.
in a city with 1,400 millimeters, after 10-15 days of heavy rainfall, you come across a drought situation. As somebody said, you got the tanker movements all over the city contributing to CO2. I think that is a very important fundamental,
Absolutely.
I mean, very, very critical issue that we need to address. Secondly,
yeah.
I would like to touch upon the issue of there's a difference between the individual user and the bulk and the commercial user. Are we differentiating? Why do you want to look at the consumer as a one homogeneous category? The consumers are heterogeneous in category, particularly the commercial and the bulk users, and everybody is. We are looking at everybody in the same perspective. Is that right? And most importantly, Hariharan, I would like to tell you, unless we have an integrated perspective of urban water management, the supply side is not going to be a solution. In a city like such as Chennai, where water supplied by the metro water is something like 700 or 750 MLD,
Correct.
milliliters per day. Sewage generation 1,200 MLD.
Absolutely.
Where is the sewage going?
No,
It is
I
the
know.
sewage which is contributing to the disaster, not the fresh water.
Correct.
In my view,
Good.
it is sewage which is
Right.
contributing to the disaster during the flood times. Please understand.
You know
You
what?
have to have this kind of a integrated perspective. There are many more takeaways I have. Since you said only 3 takeaways, I will stop here. Thank you.
The reason also is we have another 25 sessions, wonderful sessions of this kind, like our Sunil said, with,
Please go ahead.
with the
I'm
conference
not
and such.
questioning you. I'm not at all questioning you. Please go ahead.
One other thing that, embedded in what our Professor Janak is saying is that for every 1,000 crore liters or 10 billion liters, you are talking of about, and we can share the math with you, we are talking of about 270,000 kgs of carbon emission that is saved for every 1,000 crore liters. And every 1,000 crore liters, I might, correct Mr. Nandkumar here, it's not 9 days. In your city, you've got about 200 crore liters per day consumption today, 2 billion liters of consumption per day in Chennai today, from what I have heard in the last, say, 3 weeks of some very, very cursory research. I'm saying, therefore, for every 5 days, you've got 1,000 crore liters. And that, in the context of a year, is not even 1.5%. Over to you, Sripati, as to who you want to invite next to speak.
Chandrasekharan, are you there? Can you
Chandra
say
from Watson.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Sir, always you look on the larger industrial problems and the automation and stuff. I am a poor man's guy. I would always look upon the bubble tops which are being supplied across the city here. With 95% are spurious. They don't have any standardization. ISI marker all faked. Most of them are run by police and the goons here. And whenever the shop is closed by this ISI guys, next day they will have a hartal in Coimbatore market and they'll get back the license in some other name. So whatever bottle is being supplied across the city are all not really good potable water. And then say in the name it is just filled in a bottle and with the seal, people are just consuming it. And all are drawn from the industrial area, whichever industry is sick and closed. They go inside illegally, have a bore, and from that they keep on sucking. Ambattur has almost 21,000 such suckers were there. I don't call them bore suppliers or water suppliers. They literally suck the bore water.
How do we have some
In the name of
vigilante
RO,
photos?
again they use RO invariably.
Chandra, I might ask you like this.
Yeah.
You're right. We need to have some vigilante stuff also of this kind. That is, if there are photographs of this kind, and then we aggregate it and send it to the department of, the Secretary
I
for
can
Water
surely
Resources.
get you the data in numbers.
Or
As
not
you
just
said, there
you.
are
I'm saying
25
there are so many leaders,
so
so many
far.
citizens here. My appeal to all of you who have logged in, and you are over nearly about 50 people now, I would urge you to see, if you're listening to Chandra here of water sanitation, see if you can send us any such pictures. Today, you know, it's not like even 5 or 7 years to 10 years ago. You can take your gizmo, go and take a shot. You can even take a film. If there are any such things that you can give,
Sir,
on behalf
you
of,
can see the bottles are kept in unsafe
yeah,
places
the
in open.
commitment on behalf of VOW as well as ICCW, if I may take the liberty of saying so, on behalf of Ms. Nandakumar, Sripati and others, we will see how we will reach it to somebody in the government. I don't know who that will be in the state government, maybe the secretary level or some level like that.
And of
And
course,
if it
Dr.
goes,
Pradeep.
they're on there, they're good
He is
people
the
here.
best man to.
Okay, any other
represent
points
us.
from you, Chandra? Any other points? It's a very good point you have brought in here about bottled water and the lack of ethic. Anything else?
No, the bore water, what these people are sucking and converting through RO plant and giving the name of drinking water has to be stopped. We need to have some proper measures and metrics so that the common man gets safe water.
Correct.
It can be through any source. And also invariably RO is used everywhere. Chennai predominantly has high iron content in most of the places. If you remove iron, the job is done. Why should you run through it RO plant? That is also a waste of membrane, waste of PSAs and whatnot, energy, and you say carbon emissions. The larger picture is much more murkier. I can go into details later, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep that in mind. Mr. Ashok Natarajan is saying if we can stop this mafia of tankers and such, all of it comes back to what our Dr. Raj also said. Everybody, all of you have said this. We need to see how, as bulk water users, we shape our own destinies in our apartments, in our offices and homes and hotels and hospitals. If we did that and we cut away, therefore, about 50–60% of our freshwater requirement and put that into that loop where you grow your own water now, all of these problems will go away. The water mafia is interested as long as you have a demand for water. The moment you say, I do not want your water, they have to look for other jobs or reinvent their own businesses. Back to you, Sripati. So I think this whole story of this year has to be how we can demonstrate only this small amount of 1,000 crore liters.
Yeah.
Mr. Nandakumar was absolutely right. You know, when he said initially the figure looked big, and then I suddenly realized when I did the math that it was a very small amount. He's right. If we accept that as a proposition, and if in 1 year we say to ourselves, we will show this 1,000 crore, I will guarantee you, not reassure you, that somebody in the government will turn around to ICCW and say, sir, what is it that you have done with this VOW thing? Please come and tell us, we want to listen to you. This will happen. But if we went to the government today, they will say, who are you? You know how an administrator always thinks, anybody who's thinking demand side like Mr. Ashok Natarajan is not accepted. He's not accepted in any administrative corridor. We know that. Back to you, Mr. Sripati.
I think Uday had to leave, so he has requested.
Okay.
So he,
Sure.
Uday, are you there still? If not, I would request Mr. Saravanan Janaki Raman to say a few words. Mr. Saravanan, are you there?
Mr. Play is also here. Kelkar is also there.
I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Saravanan, any quick thoughts for Chennai?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Sripati for extending an invitation through his WhatsApp, and thanks, Mr. Sripati.
Thank you.
In fact, this takes me back to about in the 2000s when I was with Center for Science and Environment, in which I was being the network associate, and then bringing in a group of interested people to take up as part of this National Water Harvesters Network. We were creating a sort of network based in Chennai. Okay. And that died out in 2010, and then I'm on my own now. So that's a different story. But the point I just want to make here with the paucity of time, what I can do is, first of all, whatever you have done, we have done some studies in Chennai, a background note, and then a separate study on Chennai's groundwater system. All that I'll just share with this group, and you just let me know which email to which I have to send this.
Lovely.
That is one part. The second thing is, when we started a campaign in Chennai, the first thing we did was to come out with a background note, basically to understand what is happening in Chennai city in terms of the public water supply system, and then the in-house water supply system, the wells and bore wells, and the dependence of the tanker water supply and things like that. And we came out with a report. It's an interesting report which I'll share. You can go through it, and that's a different ballgame. But the point I just want to highlight here is that our knowledge on the groundwater sources or the aquifers of Chennai city is minimal. But for a sketchy report made by Central Groundwater Board on mapping the Chennai aquifer, we need to understand the aquifer of Chennai city. Basically, why? Because this is it is this aquifer which was classified as to be ground zero some 2 years back, but it bounced back. And every drought, in every drought, it is this aquifer which is meeting our requirement. Please understand, in 1981 drought, I believe, 88 drought, I believe, Metro Water was supplying only 90 MLD. And about 600 MLD, we were able to tap from our individual wells and borewells, that is our groundwater sources. And we need to understand these groundwater sources. What Shekhar touched upon is the tip of the iceberg, and what Mr. Janakrat touched upon is the tip of this iceberg. So, in fact, quite recently in 2018-19 drought, when I did a study for this Metro Water, within Chennai city itself, we were able to identify islands of potential pockets, which can meet around 100 MLD. Just because we were stuck with this centralized water supply system, we were not able to shift to this decentralized water supply system. So I'm not getting it as water supply system per se, but the point I just want to make is to understand the groundwater aquifers of Chennai city, because it is this system that is that acts as a risk reduction measure. It acts as a flood moderator. It acts as a drought mitigator. So this forum can take that particular point, and with different players around, like research institutions and
Got that. We have another.
That's the point we just want to make here.
Wonderful. I mean, it's really a delight to listen to a researcher like you. I mean, you're given your CSE background. I go back to 1994 and Agarwal Saravanan. So I used to spend time to Trans Yamuna in Delhi with him when I was in Dehradun in those days. Very, CSE has grown. You know what it has become, since then. Back to you, Sripati. We have another 3 to 5 minutes. It's okay. We can extend a little. Anybody else?
Prakash Murthy, are you available by chance?
Yeah, rich hall of information. We're getting a lot of ideas. Yes.
Prakash Murthy happens to be our supplier of aerators.
Right.
Okay, he's into aerators. Okay.
Yeah, good evening all, and thanks to Mr. Sripati and team. I'm audible, right?
Yes.
Okay. From my point, there are 2 points. First point is that unless we charge the people for the usage of water, people will not be going to think to save water. That is my thing. We have to bring in like electricity usage charges. That is the 1 point. The second point is that very simple and effective way, as Mr. Sripati told, to save water is to switch to water saving aerators in your tap, which will give minimum 50% saving from the current usage.
Sure.
And another advantage is that it will reduce your STP plant size. So it's a direct, indirect advantage of that. To just share some few points, already Rotary is doing this by giving the great initiative to distributing Neopol water saving aerators to people, slowly penetrating the practice in the city. They are also distributed more than around 20K aerators already there. So that is 1 point. And also we have been working with green building consultants to penetrate into the market. So that is my point.
Can you share with people, if let's say I'm living in a 20-floor apartment, let's say 50-meter kind of building.
Right.
I'm on the 3rd floor, you are on the 18th floor.
Right.
Can we both use the same aerator?
These aerators require minimum 1 bar pressure, sir. That's
exactly.
Minimum 1 bar.
So how do you tell a person? See, for example, there are people who have bought it off the online. Right. Amazon sells it at about 100, 120 rupees, even 80 rupees.
Right.
They bring it back to their apartment and try to fix it in their faucets, and it doesn't work.
Okay.
And then they complain about the aerator not working without knowing that they did not buy the right thing, and they didn't have someone to advise them.
There are only, a right point you said. There are only 2 points to be noted. One, if you are in the ground floor or you take a 4-floor apartments, you are on the ground floor, you get a huge pressure.
I deliberately took a 20-floor apartment.
20-floor apartments. Usually it will be pneumatic systems, if at all I am right.
Yes.
So the pressure will be there. The ground floor will be more pressure since it will be.
Now, what would be a broad advice? I'm not getting into technical.
So if at all, it's a low pressure. If you're going on the top side, so you can go in for spray aerators. So low pressure aerators are there.
Are you saying, therefore, aerators should not be bought OTC like we go and buy
exactly.
That it has to be consulted with somebody who's an expert, and then we go and fix it in our faucets and showers.
You're right. You're
Good
right.
point
Absolutely.
taken. We will come back to you in the next few fortnights
Sure,
as we progress with these discussions.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Hariharan.
We are
Sripati,
almost,
sir.
Thank you so much. Grateful to you for your views.
Thank you.
Sripati, yes, please.
Dr. Hari, we are almost 7:16 now.
That's right. That's right.
I would request everyone to share their thoughts and perspectives on the next set of meetings that we are planning to do.
Sure, sure.
And,
any last thoughts from anybody who feels that he or she, anyone who wants to speak up? Whose name we might not have taken. Rajesh Ramakrishnan is here. I know you're working on low carbon, directions for Chennai. Maybe Rajesh, you have something to say. I know you signed up. Yes, something. I was looking at it. You know the discussion we have had some time ago. Okay, he's not speaking. Anybody else?
Hari, one just.
Yes, Raj.
We've launched it on a very auspicious Vaikunta Ekadasi day, and I wish we continue this and make it into a real practice instead of just discussion.
In fact,
That's my sincere request. I'm here to help in whatever.
Thank you. Actually, thank you for reminding us that it is the Ekadashi. I'll tell you what happened to all of you about 5 weeks ago when I first raised this subject with Sripati and I said, you should be the leader. You should be the anchor for About Chennai. He said, sir, we will take it on 13th. I said, why you tell me, sir? He says, Thai pirandal vali pirakum. Now, all of you are Tamil, so you'll know. And I think in a sense that it is, you're right, it's sort of launched on an auspicious day. Trichy was launched last week. We have Hyderabad, we have Kathmandu, we have Chandigarh to launch. There are many partner cities that are coming. Casablanca in Morocco, which is the largest in terms of population in that country, 4 million people, is also wanting to start the WOW Partner City Network. So Chennai is in some very distinguished, shall we say, company of many cities in South Asia, as well as in Africa, which will join in order to see that these common solutions that are available, these 4 or 5 sets of solutions, and of course those issues that people like Mr. Ashok brought in of NRW, which is Montreal has a 40% leakage. Chicago has I'm sure Raj will testify for this. It has a 35-38% leakage. Last year in April, Chicago is having a serious discussion on how they will bring it down by 1/2. Montreal was also discussing about this. So NRW is a universal challenge. Rich cities, rich countries, high governance and low governance places, all of them have NRW. And it's such a phenomenon. I will end with this. Every night, silently, about 1.4 billion, 1,400 million liters of water comes into our city and quietly goes away by the morning or the afternoon. Another 1.4 billion is going away silently, quietly. And nobody watches this. And the incredible damage that it does to the energy systems, to everything else. I don't know what our energy, our engineers were thinking of in the 1920s and 30s when they came up with this blasphemous system of centralized water supply. We learned it from the Romans and continue to have it. 100 years later, we are still so primitive in our thinking that we are not willing to say that there is only water, like Dr. Raj says. There is no wastewater, black water, white water, gray water. There is only water. And if we can't rethink like this and continue to live the way that our stultified engineer minds told us 100 years ago, we cannot get anywhere into negotiating our future, our livability in our cities.